soft as dust, easy to miss, ready to multiply. The plan climbs strong, carries hope.
All right. Hello, everyone. And welcome to a new episode of the Friction Map Live. Today, we are going to spend a little bit of time speaking about a mid market firm and kind of what happened to them and how it happened to them. We're going to talk you through a little more about those invisible things that happen to an organization that keep them from achieving what they really want. In uh, this LinkedIn Live, we're going to have a couple of moments for you to see this company. We're going to try to keep it pretty short here, 30 minutes, because we want to respect your time. But throughout the course of this, you will see that there's an opportunity for comments. If you see on the bottom of your screen or on the right-hand side of your screen, there should be a comments box. I'd encourage you first to make sure that that's working, that you are able to share your comments. There's a little bit of a delay, so please type those comments in. I'd like you to start out first by telling you who's on the call, where you're connecting in from. So go to that comment box and tell me where you're connecting in from. My name is Vinay Raman. I am the chief analyst for friction for companies. And what I'm going to take you through today is a little bit about how you can see that friction, what creates the drag, what creates the risk or opportunity. And to make the most of your time, as you put things into the comments, I will answer them as best possible within the context that I have. All right. So today, let's talk about our topic. Our topic today is how mid-market firms lose margin early. What does that mean? That there are organizations that have planned to hit certain margin targets for their organization, but despite the best planning, invisible forces, invisible factors that you can't necessarily see on a spreadsheet are actually showing up and sabotaging your ability to get to the margin that you want as an organization. So today we're going to focus in a little bit about that and show you why those hidden factors, those invisible factors that actually shape and prevent you from hitting the margin and what it causes to that erosion of margin. All right, I see already in the comments, I've heard from one person here, John Lane. Hey, John, great to see you. John, I would love to hear a little more about who you are and what you do. Please type into the comments and love to hear more about you, John. Type into the comments so I can tailor this conversation to be a little more around what you would like to see. Thanks, John, for joining in. I'd encourage others to type into the comments as well who they are and where they're coming in from so we can make this a good use of your time. Let's go ahead and get started. First of all, I'm going to start out just to give you a little bit of background about me, just so you know who I am. I'm going to start out with this idea of friction. My work has always been about decoding the complexity of organizations into signals that leaders can act on. My background is in machine learning, artificial intelligence, business intelligence. I have been seeing data, metrics, and numbers for the last 25 plus years in Fortune 1, which is the Department of Defense and Homeland Security, and some incredibly massive organizations, some Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies, as well as startups. And the thing that is clear amongst all these things is that it's not about opinions. It's not necessarily about sentiment. It is about the signals. What is the truth of what is happening in an organization? And that is what I have learned over many, many years of working in all these different segments, industries, and spaces. Across those federal agencies, across those mid-market firms, the pattern is the same. Friction always shows up in the data before it shows up in the results. So how do you decode that friction? How do you see those invisible factors that are shaping the organization's outcomes? And in this case, how it's eroding the margin that you want. Let's see, I got a comment here from John Lane. I'm going to put this up on screen just so you all can see who John is and get familiar with him. I'd love to hear from anybody else who's joining in as well. John Lane is a leadership consultant, and he wants to help clients see the invisible barriers that create drag on business. Absolutely. Leadership is really hard to do unless you can see those things that are preventing you from getting to that next level. All right, let's keep rolling here. And I will say, throughout the course of this, there's a lot on these slides. There's a lot that I'm going to be saying. I'll be more than happy to send you a recording of this and send you the slides afterwards. Just type in slides into the comments, and I will make sure to send you a copy so that you have the full recording, so you can listen in, or the slides that you can go back and review through at your own time. On this slide, you don't miss targets because of planning. The fact of the matter is, you spend a lot of time in planning as a coach, as the leader of an organization, as the CEO, as a senior exec. You spend a lot of time using systems like EOS or scaling up, frameworks, diagnostic tool sets, lots of other tools and resources that help you plan better. Management offsites. These are all fabulous tools. But it's not the tools that are failing. It's not the planning that's failing. It's that you miss your targets because of the assumptions in all of that planning. They're often invisible, and those assumptions turn out wrong. If I believe that sales is on a good path for 2026, but my customer service team sees something about that, that invisible sentiment makes a huge difference in how sales will execute in 2026. I want to be able to see that as a leader. So it's not the planning. It's actually not your fault as the leader of an organization that you can't see the stuff. It's invisible. And friction hides inside of those assumptions. The friction that every organization will see is because of the quality of those assumptions that you make. So it's not about the planning. Throughout the course of this, I would love to hear your thoughts. Friction hides inside of those assumptions. How does that resonate with you? And what does that mean to you? I'd love to hear. Here's a fact. Mid-market firms often rely on dashboards that report too late. You can't report on sales metrics, on customer service metrics, on your P&L or your balance sheet until after the event has occurred. So any mid-market firm out there is relying on a dashboard that is reporting on something after the fact. And by the time the dashboard catches the issue, the friction is already won. If customer service sees that the sales process is riddled with onboarding pitfalls and speed bumps for customers, well, when you find out at the end of that month or the end of the week that 3 customers fell out of the pipeline as part of that onboarding process, it's too late. The friction already won the bet, not you. So how do you start to see those frictions early on? I would like to ask sort of informally as a poll here, what do you do right now? How do you find out that there's assumptions in your system that everybody else has that you're not able to see? Because they exist, we're often called blind spots. So how do you eliminate those blind spots today? What methods or procedures do you use? Because that's what we're going to spend a little bit of time here explaining is how can you see those blind spots better, faster, with much higher fidelity and clarity? Because here's the thing, the risk isn't the decision, it's the missing intelligence beneath it. Back to that example of sales and that bumpy onboarding process. If customer service consistently sees something that sales is not able to see, that the decision is not bad. It's that was made on incomplete, not bad. It wasn't a bad decision. It was made based on incomplete information. It's a time-consuming process to gather that information at best. And your instinct detects friction weeks before numbers confirm it. You know that customer service is kind of holding their tongue for lack of, they don't want to interrupt sales when the sales leader is speaking. They don't have full clarity themselves as to what it is, so they hold their tongue. That might hurt just as much as anything else. They're holding their tongue. They might do it out of respect. They might do it because they don't know if it's true. They don't have the numbers yet. But in your role, your job is not to guess. Your job is to see. as the leader, as the decision maker. And your inability to see the full picture limits your ability to make a fantastic decision. Hey, John has a comment here. I'd love to put this up on screen, just share with everyone. Dashboards and dashboards only surface major issues. By that time, the impact has been realized, not prevented. Yeah, absolutely right, John. By the here's another way we can think about this, or an analogy of something that we probably see in everyday life. When you're driving your car or your vehicle of any sort, consider that the speedometer that tells you that you're going 50 kilometers an hour or 50 miles an hour is actually after the event has occurred. Yeah, sure, it's connected to the wheels, but you already traveled that 50 miles an hour in order for the speedometer to register it. That is near instantaneous. But is the dashboards that you use, the business intelligence in your organization, as instantaneous as that speedometer in your vehicle? Because if it's not, that lag time is when the friction is winning. Because if you start to see that as you're driving away from your house, you're pressing the accelerator 50% of the way, but you're only achieving some component of what your speed is, that is enough feedback for you to start to say, oh, I left the handbrake on. I've done that before. It was only when I was halfway down the street that I realized that I'd left the handbrake on. What do you see when the handbrake is on for your organization? Great insight, John. Appreciate that. Please keep them coming. So here's a key point I want to make for you, right? When each leader carries a different mental model, when they've got a different idea of what's happening in the in the organization, the execution drifts quietly. Because the sales leader sees that sales is going quite well, the CEO believes that the sales leader's on top of things, has got it, is an active, intentional control of the outcomes. At the same time, the customer service leader sees we've got a bumpy onboarding process. The execution model is going to drift because that sales leader is operating based on the assumptions that they have. The CEO is operating on the assumptions that they have. And ultimately, that customer service leader, because they may not be able to necessarily prove it yet, they don't have the data. The assumption that they're making is that it might not be important enough. And that is going to be potentially the loss of 3 clients. And how much is each client potentially worth in your case? This is the part that you probably feel every week, but you can't show to anyone because there's no data to back it up because the data hasn't arrived yet. It might be another week, it might be another month, it might be another quarter before that data shows up. Are you willing to wait that long to visualize, understand, see, and have those frictions demonstrated to you? What you're seeing on screen here is what we call a friction map. This is a map that makes those frictions possible. Let me explain this to you real quick. If you look at this organization, this gray area is the average of what the team is. So you can see things here on the outside edge, such as technology usage or customer satisfaction in this organization, employee engagement. Those are relatively close to the outside edge. Those numbers are high. So everyone in the organization tends to see those as quite high. But you can see there's 4 members of this team. Blue is green, this red, and then there's a kind of a deeper red here. Those 4 different colors represent a different member of the team. And each leader on that team sees a different reality of what's happening in this organization. Very similar to this idea of the customer service, chief revenue officer, sales officer, and the CEO. They have different opinions. And because they have different realities, there's drift in the execution model. And because there's drift in the execution model, there's margin risk. Because your cost of acquisition of those 3 clients who dropped out of the pipeline, that cost of acquisition doesn't go anywhere. It's still baked into the process, but you lost 3 more clients than you could have had because that friction wasn't fully visualized, articulated, or shared with everyone. It wasn't because someone was trying to hide things. It's just because they didn't have enough evidence themselves. This friction map will show you in a couple of moments where that is. So I want to pause for a moment here and ask everyone, how do you see what are the frictions in the system that you have today? More importantly, on a weekly basis, you're doing your senior leadership calls, you're having conversations with people on your senior leadership team. How do you make sure that you are able to surface the assumptions that they're making that are significantly different from what you have? Because that is all the friction in the system that is going to lead to execution drift. Please type that into the comments. Love to hear what you have to say and what you see. And if there's any particular points that are resonating with you, share them in the chat. I'd like to hear and see what is making and resonating with you most. So we're going to talk about an anonymized company. You just saw that friction map for that company and that senior leadership team, in this case of four, in their four CXOs. And this firm right here, this anonymized company, it's a real company that we took off the real names, and they look like most mid-market firms. They've got strong people. They've got strong numbers as an organization, but each of them has invisible execution drag that's lying in wait underneath. It's invisible, it's hidden, it can't be seen. It's because of those assumptions. So you might have some similarities with this organization, some slight differences. But the fact is, this is a strong company. They're doing well. It's a $15 million company. This is nothing to sneeze at. They're doing quite well. They spend time doing leadership coaching. They spend time doing their executive offsites on a quarterly basis, on an annual basis. They bring in outside counsel on from fractionals or talent and expertise to be able to do this. But still, assumptions exist, and that is what is causing the drag. It is the handbrake that is still on. Here's what that friction map reveals. Do teams align on their goals? Do they diverge on their assumptions? Because different assumptions lead to different modes of execution. And different modes of execution, different execution methodologies, belief systems lead to different results. Because that customer service manager might believe that, hey, we actually have a problem here, and maybe that's customer service's fault. But they can't set proper expectations if that's done further upstream in the sales and marketing process. Let's take a look at this friction map here and look at it in real time. So in this organization, we see that brand reputation for this team is relatively low. We have one team member that believes it's actually a pretty good score. Looks like about a 9 out of 10. But we have other members who believe this is the average of the team is around a 6. We have two 5s, two 4s, and then we have a 3. So 3 out of the 4 believe that brand reputation is not so good and not such great standing. 1 believes it's fantastic. They all tend to agree that market position is a relatively low score because the average here is a 5. We also see things like revenue growth. 1 believes that revenue growth is a 6, but the average is around a 5. So this is an area of challenge. So let's take this example that I had with the 3 players that we had talked about. CEO believes that things are going quite well, outwardly facing. Let's say this red line here is the CEO, agility and strength, our financial health, our customer retention, our brand reputation. The CEO thinks it's fantastic. Whereas the chief sales officer, let's pick them as green here. I'm just picking one. Brand reputation, not so good because they don't believe that marketing's pulling their weight properly. Customer retention is pretty good. We believe that employee engagement is good because guess what? They're keeping all their salespeople. Innovation pace, financial health, look good. They believe communication flow. They don't believe their market position is so strong. They don't believe that their market expansion is so strong. Can you start to see here? I'm kind of curious what goes through your mind as you look at this organization. You see how there's areas of tension within this team. How long did that process take you? Probably all of about 30, 60, maybe 90 seconds to be able to look at this map and see how this team diverges on what they believe. Because look, misalignment in even 2 of these functions increases execution risk probability by more than 25%. You're willing to leave that to chance is the way I always think about it. This map here, this friction map, shows where that risk concentrates. I would look first at these areas that are closest to the center: revenue growth, brand reputation, and market position. That's where everyone's organization believes there is risk already. And let's talk about odds of success. Once you see this map, it starts to tell you, it starts to read the tea leaves for you, if you will, as to what your odds of success in achieving your goals are. When your leaders see different realities, your real success odds drop quietly. You may not see it until the end of Q1. You may not see it until well into Q2 that your 2026 plans were not ever going to get to where you wanted. You're willing to wait 90 days, 120 days, 180 days, because every plan assumes alignment. This map verifies that the alignment does or does not exist. And that's what that map, when you saw that, you could see how they diverge. Because when the leaders shift different realities, the odds of success drop quietly. In this case, into maybe 45, 55% chance of success. That's not a bet that I would take. This has happened to me too many times myself. And that's why we ended up creating this system so that we could actually start to mitigate our risk in achieving our goals. I would love to have here in the comments. What do you think? Do you feel like you have a good sense of the execution, the realistic success chance of your execution risk in your organizations today? I would love to hear in the comments. Yes? No? Maybe? Not sure. We built all this because we started to learn something. And before you map a whole leadership team, we have to map the individual so that they can start to find out what they look like. And that whole process takes 3 minutes. That's total elapsed time. If you're a bit of a perfectionist, maybe 5. But this is insight that is data based and instant. 3 minutes or less. The idea is that you answer a couple of questions about your perceptions of what's happening in the organization. This is not a personality test. This is your perception. This is your belief of what's happening in the organization. And it starts to show you in your individual friction map how you look compared to the rest of the people in the industry. Where are your relative strengths and where are those relative risks that you have? It starts to tell you what you may already know about yourself, but shows you how significantly so that you're fantastic at sales, but operations is a thing that you don't necessarily love. It shows you that. But it's a private look at your own execution tension and tensions. It shows you where you are probably showing up every day and why the conversations that you have that seem like they're repeating over and over again, it'll show you why they're repeating because of what your belief in the system is and where your belief is because they have a different belief because they have different assumptions. That's called the individual core report, and it shows you your individual execution, more importantly, your individual friction map. And why does it matter? Because this is your anchor point. Once we know your model, we can start to see where your team diverges. I'd love to hear in the comments is if you've taken a personality test in the past or if you've taken any types of assessments, it was useful for you. I'd love to hear yes or no. But the those personality tests are fantastic and have great utility in helping you understand how you receive and how you communicate with the world. But what personality tests and personality inventories do not do is tell you about how you influence the outcome of an organization. And that's what this will do. We call that organizational physics. This friction map becomes your anchor point for that single point in time. Because once we know that model, we can start to see how you influence the organization, where you have strength in pulling them forward, and where you have some areas where others you've probably naturally already delegated to, and how that's going to help you by understanding that. Because that leads to the next motion of being able to map your whole team. So let me tell you where you are, just in this sort of roadmap in this journey of understanding yourself and your organization. If Interesting. You take this individual core diagnostic, which I'm going to give you the link to in just a couple of moments here so you can take it. It's very quick. It's easy. It takes that 3 minutes. This is free. You'll get a PDF in your inbox probably within 10 to 15 minutes after you've taken that 3 minute uh, assessment. And then you'll get that individual friction map. And that's where we are right now, is what I call that little gray dotted box. You take that individual core and then you'll start to see this individual friction map. John Lane has shared something here. I want to make sure I bring that in and I think John's making a distinction here. And I think you're using exactly the right word here, John. Personality assessment, not a test. That is correct. You can't pass or fail a personality assessment. This is just about where you are. It's not a test that you can fail or get an A+ on. Tests have right or wrong answers. That's absolutely right. This is about an organizational alignment assessment. So very good. And personality assessments are fantastic complements to what we do. It is additive. It's empowering, not a replacement for. There's still huge value there. So once you take this individual core, you'll get your own map and it will send you a report that shows you what are the next steps in inviting your whole team to take that same diagnostic to find out where the friction is. And here's why your leadership team must do the core right after you. Because while you might feel aligned, as you saw earlier here, that level of alignment and how much difference there is in your alignment has everything to do with how much execution risk and execution drift there could be. Because leadership teams almost always carry different assumptions. What you saw, that radar graph that I have on screen here, this is not atypical in terms of how teams see things differently. There are some areas of cohesion, there's areas of great divergence. And the only way to see it without blaming is to map it. You notice here that it just shows that there are members of the team. It does not actually call individuals out. I think of this as a leadership extra. This is what every board, every senior leadership team wishes they had. This is what I wish I had in the past. It's a quantified view of execution risk. It's not culture. It's not personality. It's execution. Because alignment isn't emotional, it's structural. And you've built too much to lead with blind spots. And this is the opportunity to see what those blind spots are in about 3 minutes. And this map shows what those real odds are. It's personal, it's private, and it comes to you. So you can inspect it and understand and decide whether it's worth finding how much more alignment or friction there may be in your system. So if you take it today, I will invite you to an event where I'll walk you through your map. I'll do it with you personally, or I'll personally show you how to do it. I won't share your map because that is your information, but I'll show you how to start to read it and I can answer questions about it. So how you can unlock that next stage of capability, of possibility in your organization. So remember, 3 minutes, your map. Tuesday, you get your readout. There's no obligation, just your data. That information will not be for use for any other purpose other than to just share with you what we have seen based on 5,800 leaders who have also taken this as well. So I want to pause for a couple moments here and ask for any questions if anybody would like. I will stay on the chat. I will take myself off video, but you're welcome to scan this QR code with your phone or your computer, whatever the case may be, or it can go to carmo.net/friction live. Carmo.net/friction live, and you'll get access to the 3-minute core diagnostic, which will immediately, in about 10 to 15 minutes, send you the friction map on your individual level, which allows you to understand what your friction map looks like. And we'll get you invited into a Tuesday event where we will walk you through how to read this in more detail and what you can start to take. Just think, you've built a strong company. Your stage requires stronger clarity. You don't need more effort. You just need a clearer picture. So before the year turns, turn that clarity into an advantage. And here's the opportunity to do so. I'll leave this on screen. Thank you so much. Happy holidays to you, and best of luck. Be more than happy to answer any questions or comments that come in after the episode. Look forward to chatting with you and seeing if we can help you become more successful leading into 2026 and beyond.
Every forecast shining like sun on early snow. But the valley hits hard when alignment slips. Small steps drifting, turning into miles you didn't choose. Week one sits tall, bright-eyed on the ridge. Team smiling, believing they see the same horizon. But week 6 sinks deep in the shadows.